Okay, since we're all stuck at home in hibernation, isolation, call it whatever, I thought we'd have a bit of fun here trying to teach a bit of Photoshop. And I've made these two images available in a folder with the Dropbox link so that you can download them and have a play and try and follow along with the tutorial. So I have an image of Derek, a local actor come model in a sailor's outfit, and I also have a picture of Clevedon Pier near Bristol um, that we can use as a background. There we go. So I have the sailor open in Lightroom, and I'm just going to use the crop tool here. I want to try and get a wee bit of symmetry here. So at the moment the elbows are not level, so if I just give it a rotation, I can make it more symmetrical. Don't want to cut off that button, so I want to make sure I've kept that button there. Okay, so I always teach people don't wang the sliders, so you don't go wanging the sliders all over the place. Click on the word shadows, for instance, and hold the plus key, and you'll increase the shadows by 5 at a time, and just do it to taste. So there's a wee bit more detail coming into the dark jacket now and the dark woolen pullover. That's taken plus 30 on shadows. Blacks, click on blacks, and you'll see here with the highlight and shadow warning boxes clicked, I've just got a wee bit of blue there. So if I just go plus 5, plus 10, plus 15. So it took me to put in plus 15 in the blacks for that box to clear. And everything else seems fine here, color temperature, etc. So I'm just going to go photo, edit in Photoshop CC 2019. If you don't use Lightroom, obviously you can do those changes in Camera Raw, and it's the same effect. So here we are, open in Photoshop, and if I now click on select subject, quick selection tool, and look up here, select subject. So let's see what that does. So what did that take? About 5 seconds. And Photoshop has basically done a very good selection around the subject. Double click on the magnifying tool and you'll see if there are any problem areas. So super job around the hat. Wee bit of tidying up to do there, wee bit of tidying up to do there, etc. But you know, there's a 95% perfect selection in about 5 seconds. So what I can do now is just click on the mask tool, and there is a pretty darn good cutout as a starting point, but as I say, we do need to refine it. For instance, on the beard, etc. If I click on the mask and go, if I hold the shift key and go select and mask, hopefully it will bring up the original refine edge. No, it has brought up the one called select and mask, which I don't want, so I'm going to cancel that. I'll try that again. I'll hold the shift key and I'll go select and mask. And yeah, now we're in the old refine edge. I just click on smart radius, and I'm just going to give this a quick pass with the mouse to find those little straggly hairs and threads. Release the mouse, and over here do the same. And I will Let me see, I'll just increase the contrast, see what happens. Increase the contrast by about 10 and output to new layer with layer mask. So there is our cutout. Let's open our background. So I have it here. It's taken with a little Fuji camera. So if I just double click on it, it's going to open up in Camera Raw. Let's see. I'll just bring up the shadows. So I've brought the shadows up 20. I'll bring the blacks up 10. Maybe bring the highlights down. So I'm holding the shift key to go down 10 at a time, and increase the clarity probably. So I'm now going to open that, and to try and get it straight, you can click on the ruler here and just drag down a guide point, and that can tell you when your image is level. So if I now go if I go Command T, nothing happens because the image is locked. I need to double click on it and then just hit enter, and it's now unlocked. So now when I hit Command T, I can just go down here to the corner and give it a slight clockwise rotation so that I'm happy that the background is straight. And I'm going to clear those guidelines, so view, clear guides, so the guide is gone, no need for it anymore. Now you can either, because we rotated it, we've ended up with blank areas here. What you can do is just simply use the crop tool to get rid of that. So hit enter, commit to that crop, and there we go. So it's nice and symmetrical. So we have here our cutout of Derek and our background. So if I'm on Derek and I just click on him, I hit the move tool and then I click on Derek and I move him up onto this little icon here and hold the shift key whenever I release it, and there we go. He's in there. Now if I again hit Command T, I can bring these bounding bars down just to resize him, and I don't want little bits of the pier popping up over his shoulder like that. They would be a probable distraction. So there is we've got a leading line the way this is coming in. We have cut off a button there. I'll just make him a bit smaller. So we haven't cut off the button now. He's nicely centered, and maybe just make him a tad smaller again. Now I'll just show you a little trick. I have now got little bits of the pier appearing behind him, but I'm just going to commit to that composition. Now, by the way, if you do move something, Photoshop very helpfully gives you purple lines whenever you're centered, etc. So there's him nicely centered there, and it's just a matter then of getting him exactly where you want him. So I'm going to go with that. Now it looks as if there might be a little gap at the bottom, so if I just use the down arrow, press the down arrow once, I've now got him. There's no issue down here at the bottom. So I mentioned about the little bits of the pier furniture or buildings down there appearing as distractions over his shoulder. So I can click on the background layer again and go Command T, right click and choose warp, and I can now just drag that down so that they disappear. So that problem is now gone. You have to always make sure that the lighting matches. So at the moment, the light is coming on these lights, on these orbs, left to right. Um, Derek was lit from this side. You can see this is the lit side of his face, this is the shadow side of his face. So at the moment, the lighting pattern doesn't match. Um, so let's just see what happens if I go Command T on Derek, right click and choose flip horizontal. It doesn't really work very well, so I'll just cancel out of that. But if you can't flip the subject, you can always try flipping the background. So Command J, or sorry, Command Z to undo that. Command T to transform, right click and flip the background horizontally. And now you've got the light coming from right to left, the same as it is on Derek. So color temperature is always an issue. How do you get the color temperature of your background to match the subject? At the moment, it's actually not too bad, but we can make that better. Now, there's a shortcut called Shift Alt Command E, which basically blends those two layers into a new layer but keeps the two layers below, so it's not flatten image. Once you flatten image, you lose the ability to go back. So this is a top layer that represents a flattened image, but the individual layers are still visible below. So if I go into something like Nik Software now, Color FX Pro, there is a little filter called Brilliance Warmth, and you can either make everything very cold by going to the left, and basically now the highlights and shadows on Derek are getting filled with blue, and the same on the background, and you can see there everything's getting very cold. Or you can move to the right and you see everything gets that wee bit warmer. I actually think I prefer a wee bit of warmth from this, so I'm going to go plus 24 on that in Brilliance Warmth and just click OK. So if I turn that before, after, you can see that the warmth in the background and on Derek, they both match. There is a little trick, but I should have done this before I flattened that actually, for that, what do you call it, color balance layer. But you can make a new sandwich layer. So if I click on the very bottom layer and click on new layer, I've got a new blank sandwich layer in between Derek and the background, and I can pick up the color of the sky here just by clicking on foreground color and clicking on something like that, a nice light blue, and I'll just move that maybe over to there. And then using something like the gradient tool, so I click on the gradient tool, and at the moment it's a radial gradient. Let's just see what happens if I click on Derek's chest and drag out. Nope, Command Z. So I need it to be from foreground color to transparent. So there we go. Foreground color to transparent, and we've picked up that color of the sky. So just drag it out. So it's too much obviously, but change the blend mode to soft light, and there's the effect of it. So it's just adding that wee bit of light behind Derek. It doesn't have to be at 100%. If you go, rather than wanging this opacity slider, if you just go V5, you've got the opacity at 50%. If you wanted 60%, just hit the letter 6. There we go, 60%. Entirely up to you. Let's say I like that. I'm going to delete that top layer. And now if I hit Shift Alt Command E, I've got that, all those three layers now blended into one. I'll then go Filter, Nik Software, Color FX Pro, and brilliance warmth. What would we go up about 24 or so? We'll go 26, 25. So before, after, if you want a wee bit less, you can go V67. That takes Y67. That takes 33% off, so it's a third off. So let's say I'm happy with that. You know, I don't see a problem with the cutout. We zoom in 100%. You know, you'll get away with that even on a print. I forgot to tidy up that wee bit there, but it's simply a matter. If I just turn that layer off, it's just a matter of clicking on the black mask, B for brush. I've got a 50% hard white brush, and I can just click there, shift click, and I should be at 0 for 100% opacity. By the way, that was 30% opacity, so we'll just do that again. So that's just how you basically bring back anything that you've lost. You just paint in white on the mask. Anything that you want to get rid of, you just paint in black on the mask. But look at that job that Select Subject did on Derek and his costume, etc. So there's no issues that I can spot here right around the jacket. If, for instance, you did feel that there was a very little, a little halo there, you can just click. So I'm now going to change it to black. Click there once, move the mouse and hold the shift key and just go around the edge, taking off, just allowing the edge of the brush to take off that little sliver of white halo or edging if you do feel that it's there and that it's a problem. So I'm not going to bother going right around that, but you get the idea. There, for instance, that would be a wee bit of haloing there. Somebody like Adrian Lyons is bound to spot that. Sorry, Adrian. And so we can just shift click and get rid of it. Yeah, there we go. So Command 0 makes the image fit the screen. So let's say I was happy with that. Now, obviously, I fixed those on the layer before I'd flattened it. So those little corrections that I made are on the layer underneath. But hopefully you understand what I mean there. I had already flattened the image for this top layer before I spotted the fact that I had more corrections to make. So just ignore my little faults in that. Flatten image. And this is where you can then do things like vignette. So I just simply draw out a fairly loose vignette, and then I go select, inverse, select, modify feather, put in a value of about, well, there's 450, that'll do. Command C to copy that, Command J to put it on a new layer, Command L to bring up levels, and I double click in the middle and go shift down, down, and you can see the effect of that vignette, and that's at 100%. So if I just go V5, we've got 50% of that vignette. Possibly a wee bit heavy on the top there, but we'll not worry about it. And flatten image. This is where you now look for your little finishing touches. So Command J, filter, next software, Color FX Pro. Darken, light and center, and I'm just going to change that to 20. Border luminosity maybe about -20. Center size, I always go 20 or less, so I'll go 16. And this is the trick here, place center. So I don't want to place it in the center of Derek's face, because this is the lit side of his face and this is the shadow side of his face. So I want to place it maybe just over here towards the right of the bright side of his face. So before, after, V67 takes a third off, and your attention is now drawn through brightness values into his face. Other things you could do obviously are introduce things like little seagull or put smoke into the pipe, etc. Um, the likes of smoke, you can get a smoke brush. Um, so in brushes, let's find a smoke brush. So we'll go with that one there. So new layer, and just make a nice grey colour. And let's see what we're getting. Command T, resize it. Right click and choose warp. Well, in fact, no, I'll commit to that resize first. I'm going to move it first to get a better look at it. In fact, I'm going to go Command T and I'm going to flip it horizontally. So it's now coming out at a slightly better angle. So there's the pipe. If the smoke brush is too sharp, well, it doesn't seem to be, you can obviously just blur that by 1 pixel, but that looks okay. I'm happy with that, so I'm just going to go flatten image. You can introduce things like seagulls, etc. I have one here somewhere. Let me just look here. Where is my seagull? I thought I had one here. No, I don't see it. But you can obviously introduce a cutout seagull. I'm just looking for another folder here. No. So there you go. Would that get past a judge in a BPE? One way to find out. But a very similar one did get accepted into Cork a couple of years ago. But there you go. Hopefully that will help people who are maybe scared of composites realise that actually they can be done fairly simply. So I'll make that picture of Derek and the background be available for you to download and try and follow along. And I look forward to seeing some of you post your efforts. One thing that I'll do just in closing is you can, as well as the brightness, brilliance and warmth filter in ColorFX Pro, you can go to things like cross processing, and sometimes you can find something that just works for an individual image. So let's have a look. Cross processing, and there are so many filters in there. Obviously some of them are a bit ugh, and there's always somebody at the back who goes, oh, I really like that, but it's just a matter of trying to find one that doesn't go mad, before, after, but entirely up to you. I'm just cancelling out of that, but there we go. And one thing I haven't done actually is sharpen. So if I go filter, Nik Software, output sharpener, very good little tip for you here on sharpening. If you change it to Inkjet Auto Luster and printer resolution 2400 by 2400, I don't care what printer you have, I don't care if you don't print, I don't care what the resolution of your printer is, just change that to 2400. So you've got Inkjet Auto Luster 2400, and all these other things, don't touch them. Just by default, it is a lovely sharpening for your typical DSLR file. So there's before, after, perfect sharpening. Just click OK and send me a tenner in the post. And I'm just going to flatten image. Okay, hope you enjoyed that, and maybe other people will do some for us as well.